Hey guys, Reagan with Texas Defense Articulations. You can check me out on texasdefenseart.com. You can sign up for classes, pay for classes. You can buy some cool swag like one of these AmeriCap USA made from scratch by United States labor and United States materials only. Same guys who make them for the Ranger battalions and the Tier 1 units. Big fan of these, and yeah, so shameless plug, but yeah, go do that. Go buy a couple hundred of them. So I'm here today to talk to you guys about the Springfield Echelon. Been asked about it a lot. I do have a background in shooting Springfield guns. I shot, and I don't have any connection with Springfield or anything like that, but I shot XDs for a long time in competition, trained with them for a long time also. Of course, in that time, I've also shot and carried Glocks for about 6-7 years. I was kind of exclusive to Glocks. Kind of. I've been shooting 1911s for a long time, and here about 2019, I decided I'm just going to teach and do everything with the 1911 platform and not worry too much about any of the other guns. Nothing against those. It's just my preferred system. And you can not like that all you want. No big deal. So it's my background on shooting with Springfield guns. So this came out and I got asked about it. Initially, I'm like, man, this universal mounting system, if it's legit, then the industry needs that versus all these bastardized things that people are trying to do, which is not wrong or anything like that. I would like something that would just be like, oh, I want to try the Holosun for whatever reason, or I want to try the Trijicon, or I want to try the E-Flex. Boom, you can do all of them right here. So I was like, that's cool, but I went and picked it up at the gun shop, like literally like lifted it out of there, and they're like, oh yeah, you like that? And I was like, there's nothing special about this that I think, so I don't want it. So handed it back to him, and that was the last I had with it, last contact I had with it. And I saw a few of them show up in class, didn't ask about them or anything like that. They seemed to work just fine. And then we had a gun shop here recently go out of business, well, recently, quite a few months ago now, go out of business, and they were offering a lot of discounts to get rid of their inventory, and I went and bought quite a few pistols from them, and because I got quite a few, I was able to throw this one in, get it for around $500, which you're probably not going to find now. I don't know what they actually cost because I haven't looked, because I wasn't super interested, and I was like, man, that thing's getting some pretty good reviews, and the modularity, maybe it'll really compete with the SIG. Sure, I'll grab that one too. Put it in the loaner fleet. First thing I did before I threw it in the box for the loaner fleet was fire about 2 magazines through it. It shot well. And then that was it. One of the things that I've noticed on this is I loaned it out about 7 times, and 6 of those 7 times, the people who used it for the day went and purchased it so they could bring it back to class the next day. Bring the new one back to class the next day. I'm like, oh, that's cool, a little weird. But so I haven't really had that happen with any other handgun. So I was like, all right, maybe there's something cool with it. So fast forward from that, I eventually decided, hey, I'm going to run this gun. So I put a dot on it, zeroed it at 20 yards. I wanted to zero at 25 or 30. That I usually like to push it out a little bit further. And then I had about 10 minutes left on the range, and I ran my Mike Pannone warm-up drill with this one. If you've never heard that before, picked it up with Mike Pannone. Trained with him quite a few years ago. It's just a B8 target, 5 rounds from 3, 7, 10, 15, 20, and 25. 5 rounds at each position, trying to keep them all in the black. I shot that whole thing and I threw one out. I'm like, all right, cool. There's something to be said about this handgun as far as its ability to be used efficiently and well. Obviously got to be something pretty good with the trigger. When I was zeroing it, I did see I wasn't making the groups I tend to like to see, but also keep in mind I am a 1911 shooter, so take that with a fistful of salt, because 1911s are capable of stacking rounds on top of each other. Even some of the more cost-effective ones can be extremely accurate. Not all of them, but a good amount of them. So I think that's all the history I wanted to talk about with it. So let's get into the features that I do like. The features I do like. The trigger is actually pretty good. Now, when I say pretty good, I don't mean light. I mean, it's still duty trigger as far as weight goes, but you can see once I hit that wall of resistance, there is very little creep. I can't take a ruler to it on here with you, but it's very little creep, and there's also a very decently small amount of reset. So better trigger control means easier to shoot, less modulation during the trigger press, all that sort of thing. Don't want to get into that too much. So the trigger is actually pretty good. Could it stand to be lighter? Sure. I'm sure there'll be some competition ones come out or something where you can really lighten that trigger and maybe cut down on this over travel before you hit the wall. Cool. The over travel doesn't really bother me too much. But as far as the trigger goes, I have Canyon Creek Custom and Springer Precision in my XDs that I have left. And both of those are really good triggers. They do cost significantly more than just getting the gun off of the shelf. Like a drop-in or something like that. They're about $150 a piece, and that's like 15, 20 years ago kind of time frame. So this actually has less creep than both of those. So I was like, man, that's cool. That's probably why we're seeing a higher degree of accuracy versus some of the other guns out there. So trigger's pretty good. The grip angle is pretty good. I kind of wish I could swap this out for an even smaller one or even like a flat rear edge to put on there, but this is the smallest one, but you can swap these out if you got big old meat hooks for your mitts. It does have the little ledge over here to keep you from getting the Glock bite. I've got a couple dudes who have serious Glock bites because of the way their hands are shaped and the way they grip their Glock, so hey, maybe this will work for them, but there's other options to be able to make the Glock work for you. I'm not knocking that or anything like that, but it is a true statement. Full ambidextrous full ambidextrous controls. Magazine release works from both sides. Slide release works from both sides. That seems to be great. However, this is just a little flat piece of sheet metal, not calling it junk or anything like that. It's a folded piece of sheet metal, is not anything like a molded or milled part. As a 1911 shooter, that kind of bothers me just a little bit because I always keep my thumb on top of the safety as I'm shooting my 1911s. So I've actually tended a few times to have my thumb on top of this slide release, and so the slide's gone home on an empty chamber before. That's shooter error, not the gun, but it is a thing if you're a big 1911 shooter, so keep that in mind. I'm not huge on how chunky these serrations are on the front slide. I do love forward cocking serrations. They just look a little weird to me. It's not that they're bad or anything like that. And it's got a little ledge right before the chamber in case you're slipping off of that for whatever reason. And it has the little ledge towards the end of the slide. They had those on the Mod 2s that came out. I do still have one of those that still shoots pretty well with a lot of stuff on it. My biggest complaint on this gun, by a margin, is going to be U-notch rear sights. Yeah, you can throw an optic on there and be done with it, but I'm also thinking in the concept of like people who like shoot a gun and they're like, oh, I want to go buy one, and they don't think about having to buy like an optic and a light and like changing the sights out and buying 3 and 4 magazines. Can I go buy this off the shelf and it's great? With the U-notch rear sights, I hate U-notch rear sights. It makes me want to kick kittens. Don't make me kick kittens. Stop this. Garbage, right? They even have a little white line around here to make it even harder to hit what you're shooting at. So I blacked that out if you can't tell. I would like someone to make just a direct replacement rear sight with straight rear notches. My reasoning behind that is your eyes pick up straight lines sooner than they can pick up curved lines. That's why camouflage that actually works doesn't have straight lines in it. When it comes to the front sight, they put a big giant green ring around the front, and I do not like that myself personally. It tends to become distracting, especially during accuracy and the shooting process. It doesn't go along with the sighting process very well for me. Some people like that, but I would be a lot less concerned about it if I had like a normal, like straight rear sight versus this U-notch thing here. But they did put tritium in them, so I think all of them have like the tritium front sight. Tritium front sight I honestly use to find it on the nightstand in the middle of the night. So I'm not carrying this anytime real quick. Probably put a whole lot of rounds through it before I decide to carry it, but I did order a carry holster for it so that I can run this slick in class a few times, still see if this thing might be a pretty good option for me. The big complaint that most people ran into were going to be those 20-round magazines where they had that big giant polymer base on the bottom of them. Apparently those were coming apart whenever people would slam them in there. Some of them apparently weren't assembled correctly. That's neither here nor there. I'm not a fan of that anyway. I would like to just have another one of these base pads and just run duty style magazines in this thing. I'm not super concerned about that. But hey, if that is your jam, apparently Terran Tactical is making them. I've heard a bunch of people don't have issues with it when the magazines are assembled right. I'm not going to get into all that. If it's your concern, you want to do it, Terran Tactical makes some, and those are going to work. They got a little metal pin in the back. It is not going to come out. So have that as an option. The thing that I'm not super sold on most of these like newer guns is going to be like SIG 320 in this, or like Super Modular, where the trigger group is actually what's serialized, and you can swap out slides and barrels and grips and all that. To me, for me personally, the way I do things, it doesn't really make sense for me to do that. Maybe as an institution, it might be a thing, but for me, some of this stuff tends to cost so much. If I'm switching this whole thing into a compact or subcompact, it costs so much, I might as well have just bought another gun. And I like buying guns, so why would I not do that? But I'm just making fun. Don't get upset about it. Hey, if that's part of your mission, you need it. Hey, that modulator may be good for you. Can understand it for the military, that sort of thing. But it's just not a thing that I concern myself with. So I don't really count that as a plus, but maybe your institution will if these become popular enough to be going through institutional trials and that sort of thing. Hope this helps, guys. But that's my experience with the Echelon. Going to continue to shoot it and do it dirty. Hey, if I find a massive failure or anything like that, I'll make another video.